Hey movie junkies, welcome back to Twin Flicks, where we always here celebrating the magic of movies and most importantly, physical media with you. This has been a long time coming. After years between a very lackluster DVD and then the 2015 Blu-ray that honestly really wasn't much of an upgrade from the DVD, Warner Brothers has gone back into the vaults and has given Howard Hawks' epic masterpiece western Rio Bravo the treatment it highly deserves with a new 4K restoration from the original 35mm negative, forming a new native 4K DI with HDR grading. So without further ado, let's dive in and compare the differences here between the 4K and the previous release Blu-ray, and if it's worth upgrading your Blu-ray to the 4K. Now first, before we get into the color grading and detail levels, I want to talk about what's been kind of a controversy with this release, and that's the grain structure. I've received a handful of messages on my socials telling me that Warner Brothers decided to completely scrub the image, ridding it of all the grain. Now honestly, when I watched the 4K, I didn't notice a lot of grain management applied to the image. I'm not saying that the grain structure is perfect or void of any grain management done. I did notice some occasional areas where the grain is affected, but nowhere nearly as bad as what I was told. In fact, I noticed majority of the image still has a nice finer grain feel to it that remains pretty consistent outside of the occasional areas of grain management. The first thing I noticed right away was the increased amount of color depth to the image that's full of life. The HDR10 grading really opens up the color gamut much wider now, with reds that look terrific, that looks more appropriate. Blues are also looking more natural and fuller, and that strong yellow-brown overtone the film has always had is fully maintained here, looking more cinematic, which is something the Blu-ray did not offer. Saturation has also been slightly increased here, giving the image more punch and life to it. Contrast is on point, brightening up the image just right. Skin tones are also warmer and looking more natural, where on the Blu-ray they lean more on the palish side. The entire color palette just exudes more life and vigor, especially with those sun-drenched landscapes that just look breathtaking. The Blu-ray also lacked on black levels that had some crush and even some slightly grayish blacks, I noticed, along with weak shadows. With this 4K, we now have all those strong, deep, inky black levels that are very consistent and looking truer black, with excellent rich shadow delineation. There is also a much truer sense of depth and three-dimensionality to the image now that is constantly impressive. A major improvement here with this 4K, especially when compared to the Blu-ray, is with the details and texturals. And the image just looks incredibly more detailed and lifelike. Close-ups of the rough facial features of wrinkles, imperfections, pores, beads of sweat, caked on dirt and mud. And all the grime is more revealing now, even down to the wear and tear in John Wayne's coat. It just looks incredibly more defined, and this goes for every aspect of the film. The 4K with the higher definition really showcases the film's beautiful production design that just looks stunning. Now, the film has always had some soft and rough spots, especially with transitions, some rough transitions. And now with the high resolution, it is more noticeable. But this all just comes down to inherited issues with the original negative, and not at all a problem with the transfer. Even the Blu-ray had these issues. Rio Bravo on 4K is all the way around a very striking transfer that is definitely worth upgrading. Alright, now let's get into the audio presentation of Rio Bravo, and it's a well-known issue that the Blu-ray had a big problem. It had a very disappointing Dolby Digital mono track that severely lacked any real presence, where dialogue, music, and sound effects had this sort of hollow quality to the audio. To the point where I had to constantly play that volume up and down game. You know what I'm talking about. You have to keep turning it up, turn it down, turn it up, turn it down, because it will sound real quiet one moment, then too loud the next moment. Thankfully, Warner Brothers went back and fixed this issue with a newly restored and beefed up DTS lossless stereo mix sourced from the original 2-track mono mix that was shown theatrically. And it's a monumental improvement here. The near silent opening alone with just sound effects and music is outstanding and gives us a hint right out of the gate of what we're in for. And then once John Wayne says those opening lines of dialogue, the audio just takes off from there and it's constantly engaging. All the gunshots and sound effects have plenty of power and weight to it, and the film's score and music sounds terrific, open, and spacious. Dialogue is crystal clear, always constantly easy to understand, and there is no any age-related hissing, hums, or anomalies to be heard, and also sound effects or music never drown out any part of the dialogue. This is a fantastic sounding new audio mix. Alright, so my score for Warner Brothers 4K presentation of Rio Bravo, I'm giving it a overall 5 out of 5 for video and audio. This is just a huge night and day difference and a major upgrade from your Blu-ray. But now here's the real test, because I'm really curious about your opinion here. When you look at the differences between the two formats, the 4K and the Blu-ray, which do you think looks better? Head over to the comment section and let me know. As always, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me for a few minutes and comparing the differences here between the 4K and the Blu-ray of Rio Bravo. As always, keep physical media alive, and we'll see you next time.